Today's guest, Linda Crill, is a former Fortune 100 executive and serial entrepreneur. Linda has spent her career working with clients in managing change. When her own life was turned upside down by the loss of her husband to cancer, and she couldn't seem to climb out of it in the usual ways that people do, Linda, in a moment of rebellion, made the choice to do something completely out of her comfort zone. She bought a Harley and went on a 2,500-mile road trip. Her inspiring book, Blind Curves, chronicles this journey and the insights that came from it. If you've ever lost someone close to you, you'll want to listen to this interview and read her book because her advice is invaluable. And now, on to the interview. Enjoy. Hello, we're here today with Linda Crill, and I'm so happy that you've joined us today for this podcast. Linda, I know we have a lot to talk about. You've been through a lot of stuff. So I think my question to you is, where would you like to start? Do you want to start going back into your younger years, or would you like to fast forward somewhere
I think closer
to now?
Because of my age, there's too many years.
Yes.
But the unwanted, unknown, and unexpected happens in all of our lives. And when I work with workshops with women and girls, I usually say, think of those times in your life where something happened that forever changes going forward.
Oh,
And
yes.
most people can come up with at least 10 by the time they're 40.
I think that is true.
And so I'm going to choose one to talk to you about because one of these times, all these times take a real readjustment to life.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
But my husband was diagnosed with mesothelioma cancer, and there is no cure for it, and it comes from exposure to asbestos. And we don't know, there's so many ways you can be exposed to asbestos, but we don't know what the cause was for him, but it usually shows up 30 years after the event. And so, he was in the hospital because he was experiencing problems, and suddenly we went in for an exploratory surgery, and they found that he had mesothelioma cancer. So the doctor comes out, and we weren't prepared for this at all. We were thought that he just had some rare virus, and he comes in the middle of a very, very busy hospital lounge, comes up to me and says, and I said, "How's my husband? What did you discover?" And he says, "Oh, he has mesothelioma cancer, and he has 2 months to live." And I'm standing there without anybody surrounding me. I didn't ask my daughters or I didn't ask friends to be with me at the hospital because I didn't think.
You didn't expect that.
I didn't expect that. And so I'm standing there and I look at him and he starts to turn around to go back into the surgery area. And I said, "Sir, doctor," I said, "what do we do?" And he said, "Speak to your oncologist." And I said, "Oncologist? We don't have an oncologist. We didn't know." And he walked through the door and I'm standing there all by myself. So that was the beginning of.
Wow.
And we kept him alive not for 2 months. We kept him alive for 11 months.
Aww.
And what I learned is very important for everybody to learn to know, and that is you can't always cure a disease, but healing can still take place. And,
what a wonderful lesson.
And so over the next 11 months, we're trying different things that we did because there's no medical treatment for it. We found all sorts of ways to prolong his life, and so he was alive for 11 months. And I watched him heal, and I watched his family heal as they came to see him very worried, and they would leave feeling happy again because they could see how well he was handling it. So,
I love that. There's so much to be learned through that whole process.
And so, but after he passed, I'm an expert on managing change. I work with large Fortune 100 companies, and I speak at large conventions about how to handle change in everyday life. And so I knew that I was going to go through a mourning phase and that I would need to do different kinds of things. And so I was out there making sure I was sleeping well, and I was exercising well, and I was eating really well. And I was doing all those things that help you through transitions and getting a massage and just pulling back from life and just taking care of myself.
Thank you for those reminders, by the way.
I always
so
say
important.
The eat, sleep, and exercise.
Yeah.
Anytime we're going through any transition, it doesn't have to be the death of a partner.
Yeah.
But we need to take care of ourselves, and we need to pamper ourselves, and we have to be able to pull back from all sorts of other obligations, so you quit doing a lot of different things that you've done, socially and whatnot, and you spend time, and even feel free, like when friends would say, you want to go to the movies with us on Friday? I would say, let me wait until Friday comes.
Oh, what great advice.
Because,
yes. Because you don't know how you're going to feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing I learned is I expected to mourn the loss of my husband, but I didn't expect to mourn the loss of the old Linda.
Oh, that's huge.
Because I no longer made sense. I wasn't a wife. I mean, still a wife in my heart, and I'll always be his wife in my heart. But I didn't expect that the way I cooked a certain way because he had Crohn's disease and he couldn't eat onions or garlic or certain foods. I was still cooking that way, and the social things that we were involved with other couples. It doesn't make sense.
It's like your identity, right? Like your identity is changing.
It is. And so I missed those things. I missed my couple relationships, and they would bring me along as the fifth wheel. But it gets awkward after a while because how do we split bills and how do we and some friendships we form when we're in relationships, the four of us got together well.
Yeah.
But with three, it wasn't always.
It's not the same. Mm-hmm.
So I kept going out socially to different things, and every place I would go, people would come up, and women especially like to give each other advice.
This is true.
And so I would hear from people, make sure you're eating and sleeping and exercising. And I wanted to, and I wanted to say, look at me. Does it look like I don't do those things?
Yeah.
I was bicycling 110 miles a week. I was going to 2 Pilates classes a week. And I teasingly say, you don't have Whole Foods here in Chico, but Whole Foods was calling me with advice on how to eat. And I was sleeping for the first time in my life, 8 to 12 hours a night. And so, but when someone gives you advice, they want to help you.
Yes.
And so it's sort of like when someone gives you a birthday gift and you already have that, you don't turn to that person and say, oh, I don't need this.
Yeah, no. Right.
So I would just always smile at people and say, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I knew their intention was to offer me something.
That. Yes, absolutely.
But I kept hearing this and hearing this and hearing this. And a year after my husband's death, I still am not feeling that joy that I'm used to having when I wake up each day and saying, here's what I have to do today.
Yeah.
And I had a phone call with my brother and sister-in-law, my sister and brother-in-law, and she's a hospice nurse, and they always called me Sunday night to see how I was doing. And my poor brother-in-law, he didn't deserve this, but at the very end of the conversation, as we were saying goodbye, said, and Linda, make sure you're eating, sleeping, and exercising.
Oh, no.
It was one time too many. I couldn't face being kind and gentle one more time. It was sort of like that water torture where one drop of water doesn't hurt, but after 1,000 it does. And I blew up. And I told him I'm an overachiever. No one has ever followed this advice like I have. And so when I heard him say something I've heard him say before so many times, and I just couldn't be kind anymore, I said to him, I'm an overachiever. No one has ever followed this advice as much as I have, and this advice doesn't work. And I used a bunch of words that I won't use here in this interview. But it was very fluid what I thought of his advice. And one of the things I do when I work with groups of people and I'm helping them solve problems, if they can't tell me how to solve a problem with ideas, I say, tell me not to. If you're a company and you want to get more customers and you can't figure out how to get more customers, I say, tell me how not to give me customers. Or if you're a person and you're saying, I can't lose weight, I say, tell me how to gain weight. And we can take all of those answers that are negative and we can flip them over. So I thought to myself, if eating and sleeping and exercise doesn't work, what's the most opposite thing I can think of?
I love this.
And so I just said to him on the telephone, in fact, tonight I'm going out and I'm buying a jumbo bag of potato chips because I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania where we fry them in lard and they're thick potato chips and they don't break when you put them in dip.
I love it.
And I'm eating that sucker straight down through. And I said, and I'm going to, and this shows you how not creative I am. I said, and I'm going to learn to ride a motorcycle.
I love it.
And I had no intention. I'm a tree hugger. I don't know anybody who rides a motorcycle. My father, my brother, my friends. No, and but it was the most, but because I was a bicycler, I thought, that's the way
So
to.
did the idea come to you right then, or had you been thinking
Never,
of it?
never.
Like in that moment you thought of it?
In that moment, I thought of it. And it felt so good not to be the good girl again anymore.
Yes.
I'm not taking care of anybody. And my poor sister-in-law, sister Nita, got on the phone, the hospice nurse, and she said, Linda, whatever you need to do. And of course, she knew that I would never ride the motorcycle. Whatever you need to do, please do. And so we said goodbye and hung up the phone, and I went, oh no, what have I done?
Well, you said it, so.
And the next day I was meeting a friend that I've had for 30 years, and he said, please let me go on this cancer journey with you. And what is it like to be the spouse?
Yeah.
And so when we had lunch, he said, how are you doing? And I said, it's so bad that I even threatened to ride a motorcycle. And I expected him to think, oh my gosh, with who you are, that's really bad. And he starts to laugh. And I said, I don't understand. He says, don't you know I organize motorcycle trips all over the world?
No way.
And in 2 months, we're going to fly from Washington, D.C. to Vancouver, Canada. We're going to rent motorcycles. And we're going to go on this 2,500-mile road trip from Vancouver, Canada to Vancouver Island to Washington State, and then come down along the coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California.
This is total serendipity.
And he said, and normally there's 6 to 8 of us that go on these trips. But this time there's only 4. And the woman who's gone on so many of these trips with her husband, he's decided he can't leave his new business and be gone for 2 weeks. So he won't let her go unless we have another woman on board. We need you.
It was meant to be.
And I looked at him and I said, my children have already lost a father. My mother has lost a son in an air, I cannot, this is not something I need to do.
Yeah.
I said, no.
You did?
I said, no.
Interesting.
So I waited. And 1 month before the motorcycle trip, I'm saying to myself, what do you advise clients that are stuck when they know something different has to happen? And I don't like consultants and I don't like professionals that don't walk their own talk.
Oh, yeah.
And Einstein's favorite quote that we all use, saying, doing more of the same and expecting a different result is insanity.
Yeah.
I said, when are you finally going to do something different? I say we walk around with a bubble of who we are.
Yes.
And inside this bubble is all the things I like and I don't like. This is who I am.
Yes.
I don't do these things. I do those things. I
Yeah.
love these things. I don't love
Yes.
those things. And when we try to recreate our life, we're creating from within this bubble.
You're talking about all of us right now, Linda.
I'm talking about every single
Yes.
one of us has our own definitions of who we
Yes.
are. And there's certain points in life where we transition. Like I'm a high school's girl. Well, when you graduate from high school, who are you now? Oh, that piece is gone.
Yeah.
And sometimes the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but this is still who I am, and we hold on to it.
Yeah.
And I said, when are you finally? So I was trying to solve my problems of how to bring meaning back into life within my own bubble.
Yes.
I
I
said-
totally get that.
I said, when are you finally going to be willing to blow out the sides of this bubble? When are you finally going to do something completely? And I don't mean, going out and getting drunk or something like that. But
I
I'm saying,
know.
but when are you going to try something that isn't in this bubble of who you think you are?
Yes.
And so I went online and I looked for a motorcycle motorcycle riding class, and it was hard to find it because in the spring everybody signs up for them, and this was the spring of the year. But as I was looking at one site, an opening opened for that weekend from the Harley Davidson was doing a learn to ride class.
I love this.
And so I signed up for it and I showed up. Now, this is something everybody can relate to. I had so much fun going around telling people that I was going to learn to ride a motorcycle, and I was taking class that weekend.
I'm sure you did.
And everybody used to pat me on the head going, poor Linda, poor Linda. Suddenly it's going, she's crazy, she's crazy. I showed up for that first class, and I walked inside the Harley Davidson. I'd never been inside a motorcycle shop. I was only thinking that they were big bicycles with engines on them.
Yeah.
And as I opened the door and walked into the Harley Davidson dealership, and I'm suddenly looking at all this leather clothing around me, and I'm looking up, and there's a picture of a woman who is so busty and, obviously, meant to be like a playgirl.
Yes.
And right behind it was a shirt with the skull and crossbones with all the sparkles on it. And I'm going, all that work I did in the 60s for women's rights, and right here behind it, mocking death.
No. Oh,
and,
my gosh.
and then I walked further down, and here is a big, huge, fat boy, Harley Davidson in the middle of the road, and it has orange flames going from front to back, and it's huge. And I'm looking at it, and it has all these buttons and knobs and pedals on it, and I'm going, and I'm supposed to learn to ride that in 3 days. And I was so intimidated. And the reason I tell you this story is whenever we decide to do something new, there's that excitement with the idea, but then reality kicks in.
Yes. Oh, so true.
And so when I walked back to the motorcycle, I finally found the classroom, and my instructor was standing there in a T-shirt with all these tattoos and muscles and whatnot, and a beard and long hair and a ponytail, and he's talking to this classroom, and I look around the classroom, and nobody looks like me. I thought I dressed down with this, wearing my designer jeans and my running shoes and my T-shirt, my LL Beam T-shirt, but nobody looked like me, and I went, oh my gosh. And I sat down, I could hear him saying, yes, and I taught tank drivers in Desert Storm how to drive tanks. And I go, and that's my instructor? Now, what I did know is that we go through these periods whenever you try anything new, where we start out very excited, and then we go, oh no, and then we go, no way. But if we hang in there, we can come back to, well, maybe I can do this.
Yes.
And then, okay, I can do this way. And we swing back and forth on this plane from extreme excitement about an idea, when it finally comes to us, to, oh my gosh, I didn't know it was this,
So
to,
this
can I?
is so relatable to so many people. The hang in there point that I think a lot of people bail on is so critical. That hang in there point and where it could take you after that if you would just hang in there.
So what I'm saying is, if you take a look at what is the obstacle, and the obstacle for me was, this isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It doesn't change that trip I'm going on.
Yeah.
And the fact that people don't look like me, I said, Linda, you spent your whole life with groups of people that don't look like you. That's never scared you before.
Yes.
Get off your high horse. Relate
Love
to
it.
these people.
Love it.
Learn to know who they are. And the instructor that I was afraid of, because he was a Desert Storm tank driver, he turned out to be, such a sweetheart.
I love that.
And so 30 days later, and I don't ever want anybody to do this.
Don't try this at home.
I have guardian angels that have said, you've used up all of your savings. From this point in life, you're on your own. But I went on the trip. And the first couple of days, I don't think I remember at all what the state of Washington looked like as we were going through these forests and stuff. I was so busy concentrating on the road and watching the turn signals for the bike in front of me and making sure I wasn't going to hit anything.
Yeah.
And also on some motorcycles, there's nothing that tells you what gear you're in. So you have to keep remembering, to shift up to gears and shift down to gears. And when you're,
Can't even imagine.
And when your head's so full of, remember this, remember that, and don't forget. But anyway, the third day, or the beginning of the second day, we were going from Washington State to Oregon, and there's a 4-mile bridge that goes across it. Now, I had done nothing to research about what we were doing on this trip. All I was doing was practicing be a good enough motorcycle rider to be able to do it. And so we start, we pay at the pay gate. The first driver paid for all 4 of us, so we don't all have to find money.
That makes sense.
And the original part of the bridge is a graded bridge. Yeah. And when you're riding on about this much rubber on the front and back tires, so when you're on a graded surface, your wheels are going like this, and so you're constantly. And here we are, below us is the Columbia River, and to the right is the Pacific Ocean. And the wind is coming in so strong from the Pacific Ocean that when we're riding across the bridge, you have to lean into the wind. But then you go around big, huge girders that are holding up the bridge. And if you're leaning in, you're going to fall over. So you have to come back up and then lean in again. And I'm looking down below me at the ships that are down there. And the ships are about an inch big when we're looking at them.
Oh, my God.
This one goes, it's 4 miles long, and it goes way up into the clouds. And guess who's afraid of heights?
Oh, no.
So now I'm on this bridge that's graded, and I'm dealing with the wind, and we are going up so high. I said the clouds and the birds were below us. We were above cloud line.
Oh, my gosh.
And I wanted to quit, but my problem is I had 3 bad choices. If I stopped, I'm stuck on the bridge I don't want to be on. If I try to do a U-turn, the amount of skill it would take for an experienced motorcycle rider to be able to do, we have luggage on the back of these bikes and they're heavy.
Oh,
so to me, with oncoming traffic and I'm in traffic, for me to try to do a U-turn, I'm going to go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the third choice was, and this is what I tell people, you don't say, I have to make it all the way to there. You just say, I have to make it another 3 feet. You chunk it down into doable pieces. And I kept lying to myself. All you have to do is make it to that spot. And then I lied to myself another 150 times. You just have to make it to that spot.
As is true with anything in life that is hard.
So when we got across the bridge, there was a park pullover place, and so everybody, all of my friends ahead of me, pulled over, and they were taking off their helmets as we're looking at the Pacific Ocean, and we're talking to each other, and they're going, "Oh my God!" And for them, who have done 20 or so of these trips, they were saying, "Wow, wasn't that something?"
Wow.
But you know what I experienced? When you do something you think you can't do, and you succeed. I was so elated that I didn't die, but my fear of heights. Now, I wasn't ready to turn around and go back, but everybody was excited that they did something very hard, and they succeeded. And I said, here I thought it was the 600 thread sheets and the massage. Here I thought it was all this pampering would bring me happiness. And instead, doing something I thought I couldn't do and succeeding brought more joy than I had had the whole time since my husband had ever been diagnosed with cancer.
I love that so much. And your book, Blind Curves, tells that story.
Yes. The thing about Blind Curves, and the reason I named the second thing, I have a whole list of things I said I'd never do and then did. And certainly riding a motorcycle. I was never going to write a book. In high school and college and everything, I always took the classes, well, I couldn't do it in high school, but that didn't make me write because I'm so good at speaking. So I avoided anybody who made me do a written paper. But everybody said, if you want to become a speaker, which I did after my husband died, and all, you have to have a book to sell. And I looked and said, we do not need one more book written on change, not one more book written on leadership, not one more book written on conflict management, all the things I was teaching. But I thought of and everybody said to me, the book you need to write is the one about your motorcycle trip.
Yes.
So the reason I call it Blind Curves is when we're stuck in life and we don't know how to go forward. We have ideas. Well, I could try this. I could do that. Maybe I should try that. But we don't do any of them. We just sort of sit there and collect those ideas. What Blind Curves is when more of the same is no longer okay. Take a blind curve. Go in and take one of those ideas and try it. Now, there's a good chance that if you go into a blind curve that you could suddenly find a deer standing there in the middle of the road. Or you could have a landslide. That would shut off the road completely. Now we know that's not a good idea. We put that one away and we go pick another one. But if we keep doing blind curves, we're trying to expand this piece of who we are.
I love that.
And make it much broader. And now I have this much space to create ideas from instead of this much space.
Your bubble has gotten
That's right.
larger.
And so that's why Blind Curves is there. And people say, oh, you're so brave. I said, to me, bravery is doing more of the same when you know it's not going to work.
Wow.
You know.
So you broke free.
So it's just like on the bridge
Yeah.
where I had 3 bad choices. Sometimes we're waiting for the perfect choice.
Yeah.
And the perfect choice doesn't often come.
No.
But if we try little bits, the 3 feet and the 3 feet, or we try one idea, suddenly when you go into an idea, you're going to suddenly find the right one that suddenly opens up a whole much more.
Oh, I just love this whole thing because you are speaking to so many, like, there so many experiences that people have where they just kind of almost need to like break it open and change it up because the same thing that you're doing over and over is monotonous and it is not working. And I think part of it too is your clarity that you got that doing those things, self-care, yeah, it's fine and all. It's what I know how to do and it's what I've always done, but I still don't feel alive.
Right. And please, I'm not saying we don't need times to grieve.
Absolutely.
And we don't need times to cry. And we don't need time. We do need those times.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm saying when it continues to go on forever and we don't see
Yes.
an ending to it, it's time at some point along that road
Yes.
to push out. But initially, I couldn't have done this as soon as Bill died.
Yes.
This was a year.
Absolutely.
This was a year later when things were not coming back together for
I
me.
appreciate that clarification because I think our viewers
Yeah.
need to understand that. Yeah. So usually what I do at this point in the interview is I ask my guest to say, what would you say to our viewers about how to get through what you've been through? But I feel like you offered so much helpful advice along the way that this part is almost like not entirely necessary. But is there anything you would say that is left that you would say to our viewers about
Well,
that?
I think it is. I think we always want to think, I'm here and here's the goal, and I can figure out how to get there by doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and so, but the thing is, when you're here and you don't know what this looks like,
Yeah.
then it's time to not think of one choice,
Yeah.
but to think of all the little choices out here that you could go towards.
Well, and what I love about that is so many times when people are very depressed and in a very dark place, it gets very tunnel vision. It feels very much like there are no other choices.
Right.
And really, there are.
The thing is with momentum, I just taught a course at Harley for seniors 55 and older on change.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I did in class is I said, I want you to choose something that's so simple you can do it every single day against a goal you really want.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll give you an example. I want to start eating more healthy.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying junk food too much and comfort foods.
Yeah.
But I'd like to do it more. And rather suddenly to try to change all of my life at once, I said, I just want you to choose what's one goal you want to give more attention to.
Yeah.
I want you to think of one thing you can do every day that takes no more than 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So my thing is at 4 o'clock, I'm going to eat a bag of carrots and celery because I start to get hungry around 4.
Yeah.
But I've learned that if I start, and I grab a bag of celery and carrots, I'm not really enjoying them that much. But if I'm doing other things,
Yeah.
you can sort of eat it like you're working on the computer or when you're
like
out
that.
driving or whatever. So if I eat that every day at 4 o'clock, I fulfilled my goal.
Right.
Well, what we all know is that when you start one thing, it slowly will build into other habits. But
Yes.
at first, I have to remember, oh my gosh, I'm going to be going to this meeting today or this thing. I better take that and put those, I better have my celery and carrots all arranged at the beginning of the week so I can grab a bag and throw it in my purse.
Yes.
So you
absolutely.
you have to start. I said, if you want to exercise, I want you to make your exercise something so simple you have no excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
So it could be simply that I put on my tennis shoes, I go outside my house and walk around my house once.
Yeah.
That takes 3 to 5 minutes. If you've done that, you've fulfilled it.
Right.
And we all know that the hardest part of walking is getting up off the couch, turning off the
putting your
TV,
shoes
or getting off putting the phone away and
Yes.
quit looking at your
Yeah.
at your apps and put on your shoes. And once you're out
Yeah.
walking around, but if you decide to do more than that 3 to 5 minutes, it doesn't suddenly make the goal bigger. I just want you to do a simple goal
Yeah.
for the next 3 weeks.
I really like that.
And so people chose all sorts of things that they had been putting off. But I said, make it so simple. To me, that's a great thing that all of us can do. And
Yes.
and once we get momentum going, then the procrastination has less power.
That's great advice.
So find your 3 minutes and
I love
start
it. So, Linda, as we near the end of our interview here, I like to end my podcast with my guests sharing something. Sometimes it's a poem they've written or they sing a song, and I would love for you to share part of your book, Blind Curves, that you have written. And so would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Let me read to you the opening part that I told you about with the motorcycle shop.
Wonderful.
After 2 difficult years, I was tired of sympathetic voices, puppy dog looks, an environment filled with reminders to walk gently and pamper myself. Instead, I craved thundering noise, the thrill of speed. I wanted icy air whipping against my face and making me know I was alive. I wanted crescendo, vibrato, to drown my screams and tears behind the roar of a large, powerful motorcycle. Opening the heavy glass door and stepping into the Harley dealership, I entered an unexplored world. Hundreds of shiny motorcycles laden with chrome and leather, covered with colorful graphics and logos. I felt my courage falter. My light-hearted fantasy evaporated as the reality of my impulsive decisions started to settle in. Until a month ago, I had never dreamed of riding a motorcycle. I didn't have a husband, family, or even friends who rode. At 57, I was at the age when many of my friends were scaling down their physical activities as they edged towards retirement. There are many acceptable behaviors for a widow, but learning to ride a motorcycle wasn't on anyone's list, even at the very bottom, if such a list exists.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so if our guests are interested, Blind Curves, it's a wonderful book. You should buy it and learn a little more about Linda's adventure on her motorcycle. So thank you, Linda, so much for being with us today. Loved having you. You have so much to offer for our guests who are maybe in a dark place and need that kind of hope and encouragement and some strategies for moving forward. So thank you. If you'd like to hear more podcasts like these, visit our website, speakbravely.com, and access our Listener's Corner. And if you have a survival story to share, we would love to hear from you. Just visit our website, speakbravely.com, and submit an interview request. We also welcome videos, written narratives, and spoken word poetry. I've linked our website in the notes below. Until then, take care of yourselves, and may peace and healing be with you.